Announcing the commencement of the first purge.
I want you to change the world, and don't think that this is going to happen peacefully or you can do it alone. We need to kill the rich. You get out there, you use your weapons, and you rip Washington apart. You hunt down the billionaires, the bank bosses, the CEOs, the scumbags and the liars, the governors, the lobbyists, the senators, because they're all the same, and you hang them.
Just remember all the good the purge does.
Good morning, everyone. July 11th, 2018. I'm Eric. Lots of stuff going on the world incident map here, but we're not going to talk about that at the moment. What we were going to talk about heroes. Specifically, the people around the world waiting, clamoring, praying for saviors and heroes. Have you ever noticed that the people who say they want to save you from whatever boogeyman is out there, most oftentimes is worse than the boogeyman they claim to be saving everyone from? Have you ever noticed that? I have. We got Christians waiting for Jesus. We got Jews waiting for their Messiah, their Antichrist, and Muslims, and so on and so forth. We got people who desperately cling to the idea that the police and the judicial system are there to save them from the evil monsters of this world. But all of these things are worse than being your own hero. If your child is kidnapped, or someone's attempting to kidnap your child, are you going to wait for one of your heroes, or are you going to be the hero? Like that lady who shot the carjacker in the face when he tried to take off with her car and her children. See, she became her own hero. She became her children's hero and killed for them. And I'm guessing that she's probably a statist, but at least she was willing to become her own hero. You got a rapist in your home? Kill him. Use your knife. Use a gun. Use whatever you have to. But for God's sakes, don't think the police are going to come and stop that rape. You have to stop that rape, not the police. Just remember, they come after the crime is committed. Most times, anyway. And then, a lot of times, when they do come after the crime has been committed, the victim becomes victimized even more by law enforcement apparatus. So, heroes. You don't want someone else to be your hero. You need to muster the courage, the will, the self-confidence to stand as your own hero. The people our society deems as heroes many times are mass murderers. Is that really a hero? Is it really a hero when a man or group of men go to a foreign country who, or that, or both, is more or less defenseless against the shock and awe of our military? Is that hero? Is it really a hero? Is it really a hero when a person has the power of the state behind them, no matter what they do? They could do no wrong. That's not bravery. It's not bravery when you can shoot somebody and there are no consequences for it. You following me? So, we as human beings, have clamored to this idea for all of eternity, since the beginning of some hero king or some hero knight, or to save us from what? Take the kings of old, the Babylonian kings, the Sumerian kings. These people were not good people, and yet their people clamored, begged for them, the hero, to save them. Look, I would rather be dead than to be saved by some fucking prick. And that would the same thing go for my family. I know it sounds crazy, but sometimes dead is better. I'm sure you recognize that little saying there from Pet Sematary. Sometimes dead is better. For example, for the citizens of this country, the collapse and death of our government would be better. So, be your own hero. You stand proud. You save yourselves. You save your children. You and you alone. You do not need trigger-happy tyrants coming to your rescue. And when you call these trigger-happy tyrants, you are putting your life at substantial risk each time you dial 911 for help. Help me. Help. Woo-hoo-hoo. Yeah, I would rather be dead than to be that pathetic, that weak. At least if you die in battle, you died honorably. You died attempting to save yourself. You didn't die begging some asshole for help. You died with honor. But I just thought I'd share that thought with you. There's a few things we're going to go over here. Chicago, for one. Now let's get started here. And by the way, there's been a couple more earthquakes there in Hawaii. We have a much fuller map today than we did yesterday. This is supposed to be a hurricane developing, supposedly, or a tropical storm. But Chicago. I'm going to harp on Chicago because, as I've said in previous videos, Chicago is the key for the UN. 102 shot, 15 fatally in Chicago over the July 4th holiday. This comes from Against Crony Capitalism. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Chicago. I have. Haven't lived there, but I've been there enough. It's a shithole. Okay? It's a violent shithole with a serious gang problem. Now, my Aryan Brotherhood friends from jail would argue that these things are not gangs, but rather organizations, but they're gangs. Just like the Aryan Brotherhood is a gang. Let's call it what it is. So Chicago is a crazy place. And there's something seriously wrong there. Is it the leadership? Probably, partially. Could it be the culture of crony corruption that runs as deep in Chi-Town as the July day is long? But instead of blaming the politicians and the police and everybody else that's involved, they're going to blame guns. Now, I've demonstrated that a gun just can't shoot you. I've stood in front of my gun on the bipod and demanded it shoot me, and guess what? The motherfucker just would not fire. Inanimate objects cannot be the root cause to anything. So this comes from ABC 7 Chicago. The violence plaguing Chicago made international headlines Wednesday after a bloody 4th of July weekend. Of the 102 people shot since Friday night, 15 have died. Police said most of the shootings happened Monday night on the south and west side of the city. And if you've ever been to Chicago, the south side in particular is a pretty nasty place. And if you go there, you need a gun. You need one. You just destroyed somebody's family, one of the victims' relatives, John Davis, said. His uncle, 56-year-old Tyrone Burdine, was fatally shot Tuesday evening in front of his home, with children narrowly escaping the gunfire. Here comes this car speeding through the alley, shooting. My mom could have gotten killed. My auntie's kids could have got killed. They don't care, Davis said. Be your own hero. If you have a gang problem in your city, even if it's illegal to have these firearms, AR-15s, AK-47s, I can go on and on. Even if it is illegal. Wouldn't it be better to be illegally alive as opposed to legally dead? Be your own hero. You see some motherfucker speeding down the alley and you know they're about to shoot. You break out your AR-15 and you start putting slugs in them. See, if these people think there's an inkling of a chance that one day they're not going to make it home after doing one of these terrible things, and they're terrible. This guy, I'm sure, probably didn't deserve to be shot the way he was. But maybe he did. We weren't there, were we? It's a possibility that he was a fucking total scumbag going around ripping people off. But it's also a possibility that he was an innocent man doing nothing. What about the children that keep getting killed in Chicago? You see, this is the thing that is going to drag the UN into our streets. This is the very thing, along with the school shootings, along with the church shootings, along with events like Vegas, which, by the way, there's so many holes in that story that it's hard to keep track of them all. Well, there's a lot. And when there's that many holes in the official narrative, you know that it was a staged event. Yeah, people died, undoubtedly. See, it doesn't matter to them whether people actually die, as long as they get to pull their event off. Keep in mind that many eyewitnesses saw choppers and people firing from choppers. Witnesses saw people on the rooftops. Witnesses saw choppers pulling the gunmen off the tops of the roof. At least a couple of them. You don't have access to these kinds of things unless you are either part of the government and a high-ranking part of the government at that, or you're a billionaire or a super rich person. I think it was probably a combination of the two in the case of Vegas. Keep in mind that in Paddock's room, Stephen Paddock, I believe his name was, when the officers breached, the very first thing that came out of the mouth of one of the officers is, hey, the window's not broken. So let me ask you, how does a gunman, in this case anyway, shoot that many people from their motel room if there was no open or broken window? What about Parkland? What's that kid's name? Nicholas Cruz? I've said since it's happened that he probably is not the gunman. And there are many reasons why I believe this. Chief among them is the testimony of two individuals. One being a teacher. You know, the teacher who said that she witnessed a gunman with a rifle she'd never seen, dressed in full body armor, helmet, face mask. Sounds like a SWAT officer to me. Or maybe just a regular one with all that shit. And then you have the girl who was standing right next to Nicholas Cruz, and she made no mention of a rifle, body armor, any of that shit. She had a casual conversation with Nicholas Cruz. How can that guy be in two places at once? How can she hear gunshots while talking to this Nicholas Cruz and he be the shooter? But this is it, right here. This is the thing that's going to get the United Nations into our streets. And it's the idea. It's the point. In Chicago, they have very strict gun laws. And yet, you can get a gun there off the street a very, very short period of time. You can get a gun off the street anywhere in the United States in a very short period of time. All you have to do is know where to look. So, instead of begging the United Nations to be your hero there in Chicago or any other place, you should be your own hero. You should have the weapons that it will take to defend against this kind of shit. Most of you know that I'm not anti-violence. I'm not. Sometimes violence is necessary. Sometimes violence is needed to protect the good. Without violence, the people of Germany, the persecuted, and I'm not talking about Jews here, I'm talking about everybody, even the Jews that were persecuted. Without that violence, those people would have continued to die. Without violence, that mother in Texas who shot the carjacker, she might have lost her kids. Alright? So violence in itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's how it's applied that makes it bad. And 102 people shot in just a few days in Chicago, 15 fatally, is a big deal. Whether these people were Mexican, black, white, does not matter. They being the government of Chicago, you know, Rahm Emanuel, they are at fault for the violence in Chicago, not the gun. Hell, not even the people killing. It's the politicians, it's the policies, it's all of that. Right? And you know I'm right. So, if you don't want the United Nations in our country, if you want to fight back against something so nefarious, you need to be your own hero. And by being your own hero, you are the hero of other people as well. I'm the kind of guy that comes to people's rescue. I will get myself killed helping other people. That's the kind of guy I am. And do so with no regret. Let's move on here. There's a new app called Report It, Don't Ignore It. It encourages students to spy on each other. I mean, the Germans, the Stasi, KGB, and so on, they would have creamed themselves to have these tools at their disposal. Yet here we are, worldwide, with people so eager to throw each other under the bus. And now it's even easier to do so. This comes from Aaron Kezel. The Report It, Don't Ignore It application released by Henderson County Public Schools is encouraging students to spy on each other and report damn, that sucks. Report suspicious activity within the app. Blue Ridge now reported. What exactly is suspicious activity? Is it a boy and his father going to the firing range together? Is it two people whispering about something personal? What is suspicious activity? Henderson County students in the upcoming school year will be able to report their peers to administrators using their smartphones. The app is available on both Android, iOS, and has a web version which allows users to upload up to 3 pictures or screenshots of physical or social media threats in a field for optional supporting evidence. Users of the app will be able to report a number of categories, including threats, bullying, drugs, fighting, and personal crisis, vandalism, weapons, among others, directly to school administrators who can immediately alert law enforcement if needed. I'd like to remind you that when you alert law enforcement, you create the risk of getting one of these people killed. Take, for example, the mother of an autistic man now, I guess, who cops they mistook his behavior as being induced by drugs. And these police make huge mistakes all the time. All the time. And they never pay for it. The person pays for it. The person they go after, even if when it's a mistake, they pay for it. So, how long is it going to be until this app is used everywhere in this country? And I keep saying the best thing that could ever happen to the United States is a long-term blackout, so people get off the television, off the mainstream media, and start thinking for themselves. And until people start thinking for themselves, we will continue our downward spiral. We will continue to plunge ourselves into third world status. You think that's an exaggeration? Just look around you. Look at Chicago. Look at all the other cities. Look at the failing infrastructure. Look at the tyrannical government. All these things are symptoms. Look at the propaganda used against us. That's exactly the way third world governments operate. Anyway. And by the way, if you are your own hero, guess what? If you had a nation full of people who were their own heroes, a tyrannical government would never, ever spring up. It would not be allowed by the individuals of that nation. Because who needs a government to save them when you're your own hero? Who needs law enforcement when you can be your own hero? When you are your own hero. Now, people in jail, they tried arguing that, well, what about the grandma that can't defend herself? There's many instances of grandmas defending themselves with a gun. Just because you're old, just because you're small, just because you're kind, does not mean you can't be your own hero. Anyway, I thought I would have a chat with you all this morning. I have another video I'm about to do about people whining about white people using black people's gifts, among others. Anyway, hope everyone has a great day. Kill the state before the state kills you.